I'm going to let you lead us off here with our universal number one. It is Will Anderson Jr., the edge rusher out of Alabama. Mark, take us away here.
Honestly, like, you could go on and on and on and on about this guy, and I'm going to let you guys do it. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the stats because it's comical. It's straight up comedy how good this guy was in the SEC. Obviously, 6'4", 243. He's got the measurables. He's got the athleticism, yada, yada, yada. I'll let Dibes say all that. I'll let Shane talk about the RAS. I'll let you guys, go nuts. There's a lot to go nuts about with Will Anderson. But let's just talk about production on the field. He had a great 2022. 10 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 51 tackles in 13 games. He also had a really good freshman 2020, arriving on the scene, making his presence known as an immediate contributor on the best team in the country. 7 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, 52 tackles in 13 games. But the reason we're talking about him is 2021. And the reason that he's number one on a lot of draft boards, or at the very least top 3 on every draft board. He had 17.5 sacks, 31 tackles for loss, 101 tackles in 15 games, and he had 82 pressures. That's unheard of. We're talking about like guys lower on this list, like in my 7 to 10 range. We're talking about guys who had 50 to 60 pressures over 2 years, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Will Anderson had 82 of them in 1 year.
But our universal number 2 is Myles Murphy, a guy that I think we're all a little higher on than consensus. Consensus would have Tyree Wilson higher. Consensus might have Lucas Van Ness higher. Some other guys, but Myles Murphy is a guy that we all really like, the edge rusher out of Clemson. He was a 5-star recruit, top 10 player nationally in his class, and as a freshman, he was an All-American at Clemson. He is 6'5", 268 pounds. He's only 21 years old, a very young 21. In 2022, he had 40 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 passes defensed, and 1 forced fumble. I watch Murphy and I see a guy that's very strong and he's got elite athleticism. He explodes out of his stance. He times the snap well. He has all the speed you need to threaten the edge, and he's also got good bend, where I said that Will Anderson isn't the most bendy player. Myles Murphy has really good bend around the edge, so he can win with speed and agility. He can also convert speed into power, and he will get you setting out wide, and then he drives into the tackle's chest, and he can push the pocket.
All right. Tyree Wilson, 6'6", 270 pounds, more crafty, more powerful than crafty. He's got long striding acceleration. He ranked number 2 in college football with 41 quarterback pressures last year. One of my favorite prospects in this entire draft. He's got really strong hands, good power, motor, high-end pursuit, versatility. I think all of those check off the boxes to make him a 3-down starter in the NFL. When you talk about negatives, I don't think he has the flash of a Will Anderson or a Myles Murphy. I don't think this guy's going to be able to consistently burn by offensive tackles or pile up like 14+ sack seasons. We'll come back to this in like 4 or 5 years and could probably laugh at me making these crazy statements, but his polish as a pass rusher is a little lacking. He relies a lot on his rare physical tools to win pass rushes. And, we've seen him develop technically over time at Texas Tech, but I'm not sure that he's developed technically long enough to win consistently at the NFL level. I think this guy is a safe, high-floor edge rusher prospect that projects to be an absolute force in the run game.
It is Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. Dibes, I'm going to let you lead us off on Van Ness.
All right. 6'5", 275 pound edge rusher here. His nickname is Hercules. This guy's name is Hercules, and let's talk about him. If you want to learn anything about Lucas Van Ness, all you got to do is turn on the tape of him overwhelming 2 of the nation's top offensive tackles in Peter Skoronski and Paris Johnson Jr. last year. Watch this first, then go watch that, actually. But let's talk about Lucas Van Ness. He attacks off the edge like a grizzly bear. Great body flexibility, powerful hands, elite length. I think he projects best as a 2-down edge who can, have that versatility to play in a 3-4 or play in a 4-3 front. I think whatever front he's playing in, but I think he does best playing in a 3-point stance. He looked quicker. He looked stronger as a defender with his hand in the dirt.
We'll go ahead and get into our number 5s here. And Mark, why don't you tell us, besides being a Notre Dame fan, why Isaiah Foskey is your number 5 edge rusher?
You should know, Shane. You have access to the ras.football site, don't you, over there?
I do. He's number 8 for me. He is number 7 for Dibes. You've got him at number 5, so we'll let you lead us off on him.
Well, he's got the second highest RAS of any of these players in this entire position group at 9.58, 6'5", 264, extremely long arms at 34 inches, elite speed and agility, running a 4.58 with elite splits, 23 sacks over the last 2 years. It's not a fluke that he recorded one of the highest pressure to sack conversion rates in the entire country, 23 sacks on 65 pressures. He's an extremely smart pass rusher. He chooses his lanes very wisely. He's a 3-year starter. He was a captain, true edge setter, beats up tight ends in the run game, good in the run game in general. His RAS comps are pretty incredible due to how well he tested out. If you go on there and take a look at some of the comparisons, Javon Kirsch, Jadeveon Clowney, Bradley Chubb. It's pretty funny to see some of those names. And I'm not saying he's all the way that good. It's funny. The one that I had is not a size comp because he's actually, I think, 2 or 3 inches bigger than this guy. But he reminds me of a little bit of a taller, lankier Matthew Judon, who really just broke out this year in New England. I think that there's a lot of similarities there with Foskey.
Dibes, let's talk about your number 5. You have BJ Ojulari. He's my number 6. He is Mark's number 10. Why don't you take the floor and talk about him?
All right. No one in the SEC had a better pass rush win rate than BJ Ojulari, who missed a few games last year. A little bit undersized. That also shows up in the run game, but this is a guy with elite speed, elite dip as a pass rusher. He's a true finesse pass rusher at 6'3", 244 pounds, explosive athlete with good burst at the snap of the ball. I think he strictly projects best as a designated pass rusher to start his career at the next level. He can rush from all over the defensive front. Really good length, good flexibility, good technique. I think he could make an impact early on. And you like to kind of see him develop a little bit more in coverage. But I think this is a guy that has a lot of upside at the next level, whether that's winning through power, winning through speed, fighting his way through persistent blockers, man. I think if it clicks, I think he definitely has 3-down starter potential in the NFL. He clearly needs to work with, NFL strength and conditioning coaches to kind of continue to build his strength and kind of unlock his potential.
Let's go on to my number 5, who is number 6 for both Dibes and Mark. It is Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Smith was a 5-star prospect, the top overall player in his high school class. He is a 4-year contributor at Georgia. He did tear a pectoral muscle in 2022, and that ended his season after 8 games. So he's coming off of that injury. He is 6'2", which is 15th percentile, 238 pounds, which is 2nd percentile. So he is small. Just over 22 years old. He ran a 4.39 40, which is 99th percentile, with a 41.5-inch vertical, 98th percentile. He has a 9.21 relative athletic score. So super athletic. 18 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 1 pass defensed in 8 games. His highest sack total in a season was 4.5 in 2021. So he has not been a high sack player. But you watch him play, and he explodes off the line to threaten upfield at the snap. And he has ridiculous bend. He's able to dip under offensive tackles regularly when they try to punch, and he gets to the quarterback. Despite his size, he's a strong edge setter in the running game, and he's really good at using his athleticism to string plays out to the sideline and make plays. And I would say he's a very good tackler. And similarly to what I said with BJ Ojulari, he negates the read option really well with his athleticism. Let's kick it off with the number 7 player on our board. For Mark and I, it is the same guy. It's Keon White. He is number 8 for Dives, the edge rusher out of Georgia Tech. Mark, why don't you lead us off with Keon White?
Yeah, Keon White is a guy who, it's kind of funny. Like, I don't think I guess I just missed him. Whatever I did in my first go around in my kind of when I was collecting my notes early on in December and January. Not that I don't do my scouting during the college football season. As you guys know, I gamble on about 10 college football games every Saturday. So I'm doing my scouting in my own weird ways during the college football season. And Keon White, I guess I'm not watching a lot of Georgia Tech. He slipped through the cracks a little bit throughout the year. And I remember I pulled up a mock at one point. I don't know who it was. I don't want to give him any free publicity anyway, since we're the true experts when it comes to this. I mean, that's why you're here 42 minutes in. But Keon White was popping up in the top 15 all of a sudden. And I texted Dives and Shane and said, who the heck's this Keon White character? and it seems like he has risen. And it's calmed down, though, over the last couple months and since I first kind of saw him rising up that board. But it's easy to understand why he'd rise. I mean, this is a guy, you look at the fact that Trayvon Walker went number 1 last year, and it's because of traits like Keon White has, to be quite honest. And Keon White's 6'5", 285, extremely long arms at 34, excellent vertical and broad jump, insane combination of speed, size, and athleticism. It feels like he somehow has the traits of a guy who could play inside. He could play T-end. He could even potentially stand up and play outside linebacker. I just think he has that athleticism to be that versatile.
But Mark, tell us about Derek Hall.
Yeah, this is a guy I've really kind of fallen in love with through the process. I'm gonna have this guy. I mean, in my top 45, in my top 50, this is a guy that I have a really solid second round grade on. 6'3", 254, former 3-sport athlete who also starred in basketball and track. He was a 4-star prospect. I'm going to go deep here since you guys disrespected him and didn't put him on the list. I'm going to give Derek Hall his respect here at number 8 on my list. And again, you know, Shane Haff, he acts like he's this RAS guy. He acts like he loves the relative athletic score. Derek Hall, great RAS, 9.24 RAS, elite in the 40 at 4.55, elite in the 10 and 20-yard dash, elite in the broad jump, elite in the vertical, incredibly long arms, has tremendous power to bull rush with on top of that obvious speed that I just brought up. He converts speed to power to drag a tackle to the ground. He uses his length to punch the chest, put them on their heels. 4-year contributor, 3-year starter at the highest level in the SEC. PFF grades of 64.4, 76.6, and 71.3 in his 3 seasons starting. I don't think those accurately depict how good he was at Auburn on a defense that didn't have a lot of pros on it, especially up front.
Let's roll on to our number 9s here.
Yeah.
Dibes and I both have Will McDonald IV as our number 9. Dibes, why don't you lead us off with Will McDonald?
Oh man, just again, I probably overrate the Senior Bowl, but I don't care. Here we are. But he was one of the winners of the Senior Bowl. Looked absolutely dominant. Made Darnell Wright, who is currently getting first-round buzz as an offensive tackle, look absolutely silly. At the combine, had a broad jump of 11 feet and a 36-inch vertical. That broad jump tied for best among defensive ends at this year's combine. That was third best among defensive ends at the combine overall since 2009. He already possesses a legit move set. If you want to follow me on Twitter and just look up some of those highlights, one of the most amazing spin moves you'll ever see. Just makes offensive linemen look super silly. You look at this guy, man, I think he's right now one of my favorite day 2 targets for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think schematically he'll line up best as a stand-up outside linebacker, not fronts. He'll probably be a third down pass rusher to start his NFL career from day 1 because he needs a lot of work as a run defender.
Move on to Mark's number 9. Mark's number 9 is Felix Anudike-Uzomah from Kansas State. Mark, he's number 10. He's your number 9. He's outside of Dibe's top 10. So you can lead us off here. Tell us what you like about him.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy who has kind of risen for me throughout the process, just watching film and watching some of his tape. And he's super bendy and twitchy. He's just kind of looks like a first round pick when you just turn him on and you look at him in the uniform. It's like, oh, he looks like he could just play in the NFL today in terms of athletically and in terms of the physical profile. 6'3", 255, long arms at 33.5 inches, jacked. Like I said, 2-year starter with PFF grades of 85.4 and 74.6, 21 sacks over the last 2 years with 54 pressures. He gets underneath the pads of the tackle really, really well. They've tried to use him inside at times. He's not good at it. He's definitely a guy who should be lining up off tackle. Not very versatile, kind of similar to how I laid out with Derek Hall. Not a guy who you're going to bounce inside. You kind of know exactly what you're drafting when you're drafting this guy. And I think that that's a positive, not a negative. You know exactly what you're getting. It's not a question mark. He can handle a 3-down workload. He's good against the pass, good against the run. And he just turned 21 years old. So there's a lot of upside. There's a lot to tap into here.
All right. And that brings us to the last player to reveal here. It is Dibes' number 10 player. It is Adetomiwa Adebare from Northwestern. And Dibes, I will Venmo you $5 if you can spell his name without looking at it right now.
I will just give you the money right now because absolutely not. This is a guy with elite versatility, man. Can play inside, can play outside. Clocked an official 4.49 40-yard dash at the combine, which was really crazy when you think about this guy. Probably could have worked out with the interior defensive lineman at the combine. Crazy measurables, 37.5-inch vertical leap. That was third among all edge rushers. 10.5 broad jump, tied for fifth. That broad jump was even better than Trayvon Walker's mark from last year, despite being 10 pounds heavier. He's 6'2", 282 pounds. Other guys with that level of with that size and that level of explosiveness, you're looking at J.J. Watt and Mario Williams. I think he's a hybrid defensive lineman in the NFL. Against the run is kind of Adebare's like bread and butter. He's physical and strong at the point of attack. He refuses to get blocked by tight ends. Northwestern used him in various fronts, which I think will excite a lot of NFL teams at the next level. I think this guy is an immediate plug-and-play run defender and has potential to develop some more pass rushing moves. And you got to be excited with that athletic profile. So he's probably a tweener. I don't really know if he should be inside or out. But I think his elite athleticism gives him a ridiculously high floor.
But Andre Carter is the guy that I really wanted to mention. And it's a shame because, I mean, if we did this like 2 months ago, Andre Carter is number 6 or number 7 for me on this list. But it has been a brutal draft process for Andre Carter. Graded out poorly at the combine, was terrible at the Senior Bowl. And that's something I'll let Dibes talk on that a little bit more. I know he pays a lot of attention to the Senior Bowl, and he might have been the biggest story from the Senior Bowl. And in terms of a negative, not a positive, it's not often you'll hear that. But I mean, this is a guy who was pretty elite at the college level at Army. I mean, Army obviously plays a little bit of a different scheme, but in 2021, he had 15 sacks, 35 pressures. Really took a step back in 2022 in terms of production with only 4 sacks and 17 hurries. He has a pretty defined role in terms of what he did in college with pretty much lining up only outside tackle. We're talking about a guy who's 6'7". Like that alone makes him a pretty interesting prospect, but he is just not strong like at all. He needs to put on some strength. He needs to put on some muscle. Maybe you have him as a bit of a 3-4 outside linebacker. He hasn't really done that. It'll be interesting to see what you use Andre Carter as.
All right, Dibes, did you have anybody honorable mention that you wanted to give a shout out to?
Yeah, let's talk about Haba Baldonado out of Pittsburgh. Plus size, 6'5", 260 pounds. Had a breakout year in 2021, topping the ACC with 48 total pressures and 23 quarterback hurries. He didn't have the 2022 season that many of us expected. He had 21 total pressures last year, 14 quarterback hurries, hit opposing quarterbacks just 6 times with a 15.3% win rate. But the sack production was way down. This guy's a native of Italy. He plays with a lot of power as a pass rusher. I think he can, contain on the outside, and he's got really good athleticism and versatility. I've got a day 2 grade on Haba Baldonado. And if you want to try and spell that first name, good luck, because that is brutal.
Yeah, no chance. No chance.
No.
The guy I want to give a shout out to is Byron Young out of Tennessee. Mostly because I think he's got a cool story. I've got him as a day 3 prospect, but he wasn't recruited at all out of high school. And so he went to work at Dollar General, and he was an assistant manager at Dollar General before he walked on at Georgia Military College. He played in 2019, but then in 2020, the school's football season was canceled because of COVID, but the team still practiced, and the coaches would like cut up highlight videos of practice and put them out on, because they're trying to get these guys recruited away from the JUCO. And some of his highlights went viral, and he drew offers as the number 10 JUCO prospect, and he committed to Tennessee. 6'2", 250 pounds. He's old. He's 25. He ran a 4.43 40, which is 98th percentile. He has a 9.0 relative athletic score. He had 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and 42 pressures in 2022 in the SEC. He has outstanding flexibility and athleticism. He can change directions well. He bends well around the edges, and he's got a high motor. Like, he competes hard in the running game.